What's up? How you doing? Here we are, beautiful day today, Friday evening, and I'm here having a fresh cup or whatever that is of Starbucks iced coffee, which you think of it realistically and logically, they kind of rip you off a little bit on these. They put a little bit of coffee, about that much, right there, and then they fill it with ice. So when you buy the hot one is all coffee to the top, and then you buy the cold one, and the cold one is coffee up to here, and then they add ice supplemented. So you know, and the price is similar. Somebody has to complain. I don't understand why they make coffee hot and add it when they should have a machine, a big machine. This is Starbucks. They should have a big machine that cold brews coffee and has it cold to begin with. So you get this big machine, and inside is a machine that makes coffee using cold water. And then you fill up a big, big cup like that, and then maybe there's that much, and you fill that up with ice, right? What they do is they make the coffee hot, and they pour it into a container, and then they add ice. It dilutes that way. Anyway, there's always people debating Coca-Cola. Now, I'm one of those people that prefers, if I'm going to have it, Coca-Cola over Pepsi. Now, Pepsi's fine, but it's not as good for me. I know people out there have their own opinion. It's all subjective. I understand all that. But Coca-Cola seems to have a crisper, better flavor, and Pepsi has a little bit of something else in it that I don't appreciate. But it's still a good product, for people that like it. If there were two things there, one being Coke, one being Pepsi, I would get the Coca-Cola. But let me tell you about Coca-Cola. I prefer the Coca-Cola made in Mexico, in a glass bottle, not plastic, glass. And I wanted to say, needs a muffler, I wanted to say made with real cane sugar, not corn syrup or any of that. I want it to be cane sugar. There is a difference in flavor, and this nonsense where Coke comes out and says, oh, it's the same. It's not the same. It's cheaper to buy large amounts of corn syrup and use that rather than real cane sugar. That's the real reason. But if let's say you had a cup of cane sugar diluted in warm water, and then you let it sit to cool down, here come the crows again. And then let's say right next to that you add corn syrup, same temperature, both of them. Take a taste the sugar, and then taste the corn syrup. Don't tell me you can't tell which one where the difference is. The corn syrup's going to taste different. Sugar is more neutral, so I go to the supermarket if I want a Coke. I don't drink soda that often. I prefer iced tea and ice cold water. But if I have a Coke, I want it to be Mexican Coke or Coke that's European. I don't know if they make it in Europe. I don't know if they make it in Mexico. I think they make them in those countries, because I think it says made in Mexico. But the Mexican Coke tastes exactly like the Coke you get in Europe. The Coke in the US is different. So, people that know, they've complained about this. Why doesn't Coca-Cola make Coca-Cola in the US that tastes like Mexican Coke? And then Coca-Cola issues a statement and they say, it's the same thing. We use the same formula, but you don't. One country uses cane sugar and the other country uses corn syrup. So that's the difference. That's why it tastes that way. And one uses glass, right? And the cheapos here, they use plastic. I'd rather pay a dime more, or whatever, 15, 20 cents more, and get something that I appreciate that tastes really good with ice, than to get something that's in plastic with corn syrup. Well, I'm saving 20 cents, so what? Is that really the big difference? Sports drinks now cost much more than Coca-Cola products, and people buy them. That's why they're in business. So I gotta get my electrified tennis racket. Some little flies coming out. But yeah, I wish Coca-Cola would listen to the public that knows. Make Coke with with cane sugar. Start to mix my things up here, but what I mean is cane sugar. And put it in a glass bottle. I hate plastic bottles. It releases the flavor into the product. You know, I mean, get water, right? Go buy water that's in plastic. Who knows how many months it's been in there. And then buy water that's in glass, right? Put them in your fridge, and then take 2 cups, 2 clean cups, not one that smells like egg yolk or anything like that. 2 clean cups that smell like nothing, glasses, right? Pour one from the plastic, pour one from the glass, and taste them. All right, if you don't notice the difference, then you gotta get your tongue checked out. You gotta get the tongue checked out. All right, so yeah, that's what I do. I go in there and I see the glass, I see made in Mexico, and that's what I get. Nice and cold. So yeah, that's one of my things. You know, if I'm gonna have a Coke, first of all, let's say the glass is this big. I want it to have large ice cubes in there, large, you know, 2 inches by 2 inches. And I want the Coke to be made in Mexico using real cane sugar, right? Made in Hawaii. And I want to say something about my boots. So one of these days I'm going to get boots made by the company known as Nick's Boots, or one of their competitors. We'll see. You know, they get your foot measured up and they make a nice boot with nice leather, right? I love boots, especially when they break in and, you know, you walk with them. You can go forever in a boot. Then you lather them up, some you know, cleaner, take that off, shine them up. Good products, nice shiny boots, love it. Shiny boots make you feel like you can walk longer. Dirty boots, you look at them and they drain the power out of you. They're like, oh, they're so filthy, I can no longer walk. Anyway, so right now I get Georgia boots. They're not that expensive. They're very strong, you know, boots. They last 2 years. They last 2 years, right? Then after that, you know, you gotta toss them. But what do? I go the cobbler. The cobbler will fix it. Put new soles underneath and it'll be brand new. And every time I say that, I know I'm gonna be disappointed. So I found this guy like maybe 5-6 years ago, and I had these boots that I wanted the bottoms changed on, needed new soles, and I went to him, and he did, you know, he has all the technology in there. You know, you go in there, it's all the top machines and all that stuff, like a factory, nothing by hand in there. So I go, well, I've been to many, you know, shoe repair places, and they all are horrible. Your shoe falls apart after a while. And I always say I'm not going to do it again. I'm just going to toss them, get brand new ones, and, you know, I'm not doing any repairing. Well, this time my Georgia boots wore out, and I ended up buying new ones. So I had the new ones in the box. I said I'll use those, and the other ones I'll beat on them. You know, if I go somewhere, I'll use those for a while. But I need to fix them because the bottoms got really thin. So I wonder if that guy's still in business. It's many years now. So I was driving by one day and I saw that he's still there. Nice guy, friendly guy, you know, nothing with the personality. He's like a really nice guy. So I go in there and he sees my boots and he goes, yeah, I can fix that. I go to him, make sure, because I'll tell you, one time years ago I had my shoes fixed. I had these boots, I wanted to save them. Went to this place, they told me incredibly strong job. They did all that. And I went down to Palm Springs and I was climbing rocks. And at some point, the stress separated the sole from the shoe. And I was very annoyed because I had to walk down without a shoe. And I said, guy told me very strong, but not strong at all. So this time I went in and I told this guy, this is another guy now, I've used them before, and I said to him, I need these to be, if you can do it. I go, if you can't, then toss them. But I said, if you can do it, I want them very strong because I hike in these and I don't want them separating. He goes, don't worry, I'm gonna fix them. He goes, they're gonna be very strong. That's what he said to me. So I said, all right, do it. So he did it. I went and I picked them up about a week later, and they looked awesome. He even shined them for me. Now I got that one. I had shined them before I brought them in, so mine, they were already shined. But then he added another shine. He's got that machine that spins with the two fluffy things, and he shined them up for me even more. And I looked at the job, it was perfect. Everything was together, nice bottoms, everything. Fast forward to last week. So now it's like, what, 2.5 months later? Maybe 3, right? It's not that long. The sole is separating on both shoes, in the front and on the side on both shoes. And it kind of pissed me off, you know, not for the money. It's the hassle, you know. You are depending on the work holding up, and then it just breaks down on you. And I'm like, how do these guys stay in business? It's one thing that, you know, I say all the time, you know, why do people even repair their shoes if they're not that expensive? I understand people that buy like $1,000 shoe and they want to repair it for $100. But if your shoe costs $100, it makes no sense to repair it for $100. Anyway, that's what happened. They split, and I go, here's a guy who has top of the line technology, all the machines you can imagine in there, and still the shoe came apart. So I'm just gonna toss them. He told me, if you have any problems, bring them back. But I know that game. You bring them back, they're angry with you. You become the problem. You know, they don't feel like fixing them. They'll fix them, but it's half-assed job. So I'm just gonna toss them, and I'm hopefully gonna hold to the rule of don't repair shoes, just buy new ones. Now there are exceptions where on YouTube you can find these guys. These guys, they own a place, I think it's in New York, and they repair fancy shoes, you know, $1,000 shoes. And they do a beautiful job. Now I would be very surprised if I ran into somebody who had their shoes repaired there and they said, yeah, it looks good, but after 3 or 4 months they start separating. Very surprised, because if you see these channels, man, these guys are like professional. They do it so the shoe looks as if it came out of the factory. I can't remember the name of them. I don't know if they're brothers. They look like they're in really good shape, you know, all like gym people. But from now on, I have to stick to that rule. Do not repair your shoes if they're equal to the value of the repair. Just toss them out and get brand new ones, which is what I did. But then I said, all right, I'll repair these just to have them as backup. And yeah, the other day I looked and I go, they're separating. Should have told them stitch them, you know, glue and stitching. But then he'd tell me, yeah, that's $200. I will say one time I had boxing sneakers, you know, the boots, the old-fashioned kind, the kind that you see somebody from the 70s and you go, yeah, those are, not now. Now they look like you're walking on the moon. Look like moon boots. But I had some nice pony ones. I had pony ones and they wore out. I didn't want to throw them out. So my father had a friend, owned a cobbler shop. And I said to my father, can your friend repair these? And my father said, well, he's a shoe repair guy. I think he can make those new again. I said, all right, give it. So he gave it, and this guy did an amazing job. This is one of the rarest times where he actually made my shoe better than it was from the factory. He put me better bottoms, and I don't know what he used for glue, but I had those for years after that. I went everywhere with them, and they never broke down. The bottoms were as good as they were when he made them. So I don't know what he used for glue, but these guys are not using the same glue. Maybe, I was thinking, maybe California, right, passed some kind of legislation to ban a certain chemical, and because that chemical is no longer in that glue, the glue is not strong enough. And these guys, you know, they lose business that way. I will not go and get more shoes done. What's the point? You know, what's the point? To have my shoe last 2 or 3 months more? So, I mean, to his credit, he did tell me if I had any issues to bring them back, but I don't like doing that. I don't like doing that. Either you fix it right the first time, or I don't bring it back. I hate returning stuff. You know, I will buy something, doesn't fit right, and very rarely do I bring it back. I mean, the only time I bring it back is if my wife knows about it and she makes me feel guilty and I return it, but that's very rare. I think there was a blue moon many times before I did it once. Yeah, but when I talk about the custom-made boots, I really want, you know, one of those pair of those. I may use Nicks. I can't think of the other one. They're all up in Seattle, I think, in that area, Washington State. There's Nicks, and there's a couple of there's a few, but they custom make it. Expensive, anywhere from $600 to $800. Right, but they do. I mean, I've read the reviews, I've listened to people that have bought these boots and they've had them for years and years, and all of them give them stars up in the air reviews, like, you know, 5 stars out of 5, sometimes 9 stars out of 8. So they get really good reviews. They're really strong, tough boots. The leather is exceptional. You know, you get to choose from all the leather. The leather is thick. That's why it takes a long time for the shoe to break in. But I like high quality leather. I like shoes that, you know, they become part of your foot after they break in. Problem is that these days, you have to go to a specialty store. You can't just go to any old place. You can't go into Walmart and get some good shoes. Can't do that. Doesn't work. They don't make them that way anymore. Everything is cheap now. Remember in the old days you would buy furniture and you had nothing to do with the labor. They made the whole thing. They made it. They got the tree, they cut it down, they made it into boards, they put it together for you, they painted it, they delivered it, or you went and picked it up. Now they give it to you like a jigsaw puzzle. They say you put it together, and people go, it's not bad, that price. Yeah, it's not bad because you're doing all the work. Got to sit down, put the drawers together, and you have to do it immediately. If you let it sit, it could be sitting there for years. You know, you got to bring it home, be all enthusiastic. I'm going to do it now. If you let time go by on that, it's never going to happen. But in the old days, they actually put it together for you. Mama's boy. You know, nobody said these are the parts. You take it, you fix it, you work for us now. You know, even in the supermarket, you go shopping, they have that area where you self-checkout, and yet the price is the same. You do the work. At least at gas stations, when you do the work, you get a discount on the price. You fill up your own car, they don't charge you the same. You know, they charge you like 30 cents less per gallon or whatever. But, you know, maybe more than that. But if you go to a grocery store, a pharmacy, and they have, Lowe's, you do the work, you pay the same price. Makes no sense, right? It would be like going to get gas, and full serve is $6 a gallon, and self serve is $6 a gallon. Why would people want to go? The only reason, at the supermarket you end up going to the self serve is because it's faster. I don't know if it's fast. Sometimes I'm waiting there for a long time, and then something happens and your little red thing goes off and it says, please wait for customer service assistance, and then she'll come over with her card and do some secret code. One time I saw what the secret code was for the paging thing at Lowe's, and I would page my, if I was with somebody, I would page them. I would find out where the phone was, and I'd go, I'd grab it, I'd hit the button thing, and I'd page, and I'd hang it up. I'd say, come to the front, and I'd see them going to the front. It was funny until they see you doing it, and then you're like, okay, you got me. I feel a little breeze. Yeah, nice. This is the kind of night you want to be outside, no mosquitoes, nice breeze, and tell good stories, stories of a life. Call over your neighbors. You know who you don't want to invite? People that are nice, but then when they have a couple of beers, they get all aggressive and they want to fight everybody in the neighborhood. I had a friend like that. Nicest guy, very mild-mannered, very soft-spoken, didn't bother anybody until he had a few beers in him. And then all of a sudden the personality would change, very aggressive, wanted to fight everybody. I'm like, you can't fight when you're not drunk. What makes you think you're going to win now? And they'd beat him up. He'd push people, a lot of swearing going on, where normally he wouldn't swear. And I feel like if you have that issue with alcohol, like if you become violent when you drink, you shouldn't be drinking at all. Should not be drinking at all. Everybody I hung around with, first of all, I didn't hang around with booze bags. There's a few people that were, they drank, but I didn't really hang around with them. I knew who they were. We kind of said hi, bye, and occasionally we'd maybe go see a movie or something, I don't know. But for the most part, most people that I knew, they'd have a couple of beers, and that was pretty much it. 3 beers, 2 beers, whatever. They were mellow. They would be funnier, but yeah, that friend of mine, he would get violent, which the first time, it was unexpected. I saw him, he had probably 10 beers in him that time, and I saw him, he was trying to fight with everybody, and I go, is that him? Or is that a lookalike? Because my friend does not behave that way. And then it was him. The next day I said to him, you know what? Don't ever do that again. If you do that again, we're not hanging around with you at all. I don't know what happened to him after. I haven't seen him now since like 35 years, something like that. I would not be surprised if I did run into him, he would say, yeah, I had to go to rehab or something. I wouldn't be surprised if he even went that route, as some people say. Some people, they see rehabilitation or therapy or something like that as a sign of weakness. What weakness is? Not being able to put down the bottle. That's weakness. Not going to rehab. But yeah, he was one. I had, other friends, they'd have a few drinks, and they were fine. They would laugh, they would joke, they would get mellow, to calm down a little bit, But this friend of mine, he was all of a sudden he had guts, challenging people, and 2 at a time. Yeah, I do not like that. Don't like that. Don't start that with me because it's not something I appreciate. I don't appreciate it. I like these evenings. It's kind of like that moment between you have daylight and you have nighttime. That little in between dawn time. Little breeze. It's funny. Like I'm sitting here, I don't feel any breeze, but then I'm looking over there at the trees, and the leaves are moving like this, side to side. Nice. Sometimes I picture myself like I'm in the deep south on some dusty dirt road, some old gas station, and I'm sitting there with the rest of the old timers at a table. We have a big pitcher of lemonade, you know, maybe like 2 gallons in there with a ton of ice, and it's hot, you know, those dog day afternoons, that kind of a day, and we're just having good conversation, talking about boxing, you know, something like that, and enjoying the dusty road. Reminds me when I went to Vegas the first time. You know, I was like 22 years old. I didn't know much about how Vegas operated. I don't mean the gambling. I don't really get involved with that. I'm not a fan of that at all. But I didn't know anything about the buffets or anything like that. I thought that they were very expensive. So I would go and eat at McDonald's. I can't afford going in there and eating. I thought it was like, you know, like back then, like $100 a person. And so I would go to McDonald's. But anyway, one thing that, a good memory I have, there were these, I think there was 4, maybe 5 black guys, right? When I say that, I mean they were older. You know, they were in their mid-70s and up, older than me. I was young back, whippersnapper. And the Joe Louis statue is in Caesar's Palace, and I was admiring it, sitting there just looking at it. I was by myself, you know, I didn't know anyone, and I was just looking at the statue, and here they come, and they were with their wives, I guess, but their wives were not with them at that moment, and they started talking amongst each other, not me, probably looking at me and saying, who's this guy? So they started talking about boxing, the old days, you know, Sugar Ray Robinson, the Brown Bomber, you know, that guy Archie Moore, you know, guys like that. They were talking about that stuff, and that immediately opened up my ears. I could hear, and I got involved. I had to get involved. I'm a big fan of boxing. Me and my father would watch all the fights, and especially we were always at the table in the kitchen, but me and my father had a rendezvous with Tuesday night fights. Every Tuesday night, me and my father would be at the kitchen table watching boxing, and it was called Tuesday Night Fights. And I remember the guy that there was Nick Charles and the other guy, the Irish, forget his name now, but yeah, he was champion of the world. It would come to me. Anyway, we watched hundreds and hundreds of fights, me and my father, throughout the years. All the championship fights, Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, you know, Larry Holmes, Joe Frazier, Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, you name it, we watched it. Mike Tyson. And so when these guys were talking about, you know, boxing, I got involved in the conversation. And one of them said to me, "You're so young. How do you know so much about boxing?" And I told him, you know, my father, big fan, and so am I. And Had an uncle, big fan of boxing too, and so it was like in the family. In the family, we big fans of that sport. Even now, big fan. Love watching fights. So we talked there for a while about all the old fights. I was talking more than them, but they were contributing, and they were there with me 35, 40 minutes, maybe an hour. I don't know. We were there for a while talking about old-time boxing. The 40s, the 50s, the 60s, those years. And they were amazed at how much information was inside here when it came to boxing. And then I guess they got tired after a while. They go, okay, we're gonna have to go and get some sleep, getting late. So they went. And I appreciate that style of people. They reminded me of bluesmen, from the old days. I appreciate that style. You can't imagine how I appreciate that style. I love the stories. Just the whole conversation that they were supplying me with was something that I enjoyed. I wish I knew them. I'd call them up, but now I think they're probably all dead. I mean, they were in their mid-70s back then. This was a long, long time ago, so I'd be very surprised if they lasted beyond 5 years after that. But yeah, they were like black bluesmen. That's what they looked like to me. I looked at them and I go, you guys, I didn't say it, but I was thinking in my head, you guys look like the guys from the old days that had a guitar and they would play the blues. That's what they look like. And I'm telling you, I can't express in words how much I appreciate that style. So, and the fact that they knew things about boxing was like so simpatico with me. I mean, we bonded. We bonded, even though I was a good, 50 years younger. So yeah, you don't find many people with that kind of information. There are people, but you can't just locate them. They don't wear a shirt saying, I know about boxing. So yeah. And every time we go to Caesar's Palace now and I see the Joe Louis statue, it brings me back to that moment when I was speaking with these individuals, and yeah, it's a good memory. I appreciate that memory. And I'll give you another memory that's similar to that, but not exactly. So I was on a Greyhound bus coming back from, I was in New York City, right? So I'm in there, and there's the bus driver closes the door, but before he does, he gets a knock, and a buddy of his gets on. Maybe they both work for Greyhound. And I was sitting right behind the driver, and the two of them, and the other guy was sitting like not next to me, but the next row over that seat. And they were talking about the old times. They were talking about barbecuing. They were talking about back in the 60s and the 50s and all these stories. Everybody else was sleeping. I was wide awake listening, and I was enjoying their conversation. And they were both from the South. I think one of them said Louisiana. The other guy might have been from Georgia. But I love those conversations, especially when it's dark out and you're in that mood, that I want to hear some stories. So yeah, that's how it is. That's how it was, and probably always will be. Anyway, that's it for now. Ciao.